Okay, so these are my seed starting trays. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to properly start seeds. It is the middle of January in Texas, 2023, and it is time to start my tomato and pepper seeds. So what I first did is I got my seed trays. I'm going to be using these white trays to plant the seeds in. I need to burn some holes in the bottom. I'll be doing that in a little bit. And then I set the white trays in these black trays because I'm going to be watering them from the bottom up. Okay, so I need to get the white trays. So what I did is I rinsed them really well in the sink, and now I'm drying them really well, and I'm spraying them with alcohol. This is a lower percent rubbing alcohol, but you can use any rubbing alcohol, and you just want to give them a really good spray down. And then I'm going to let them sit for 15 minutes, and I'm going to rinse the trays out. So the reason why I'm doing that is last year I did have some fungus built up on my plants. I think I overwatered them on my seeds, and so I'm just trying to spray them and get rid of all fungus so that I can start fresh and clean and sterilized, so that there's zero chance that I'm bringing anything from last year's seed starting into this year's seed starting. So again, I rinsed them really well, then I had to dry them, and now I'm spraying with rubbing alcohol and letting them sit for 15 minutes. I'll be back to show you what I do next. While my alcohol is sitting for 15 minutes on my seeds, what I worked on is, oh, there's Leroy, our puppy, watching. What I worked on is selecting the seeds that I'm going to start. So I'm going to start 10 different kinds of peppers. So I selected the seeds and I wrote on the labels. You can see I've used various types of labels. I have these really nice ones I bought online from Amazon, and then I ran out of them. So I just used plastic knives. They work really well for labels as well. I do have some popsicle sticks on order that I just haven't gotten yet. I'll use those when I separate my seedlings. And then over here are my tomatoes that I'm going to be starting. And these little tiny stakes, I had to write on both sides to get exactly what I'm starting. I need to keep a really good record of what I'm starting, because some of the seeds I'm starting are going to be sold at our Master Gardener county-wide plant sale. So I need to be able to tell the people who buy the plants exactly what they're buying. This is how I organize my seeds. I have one of these. It's called a photo storage box, this big plastic box. And it came with all these different little plastic cartons. You open it up and you put your seeds in there. It was some website or YouTube, I don't remember which, that I got these little labels for each one and put them inside, and then I keep all my seeds stored like that easily in alphabetical order, so I can just pull out the varieties that I'm getting ready to start, and nice, compact, easy storage container. I love that storage system. So here's all the different ones I'm going to be starting. Just a couple of cherry tomatoes this year. I also write on if it's a hybrid or if it is an heirloom seed, because the hybrid seeds you cannot, or you should not, gather and try to reuse for next year the seeds, harvest the seeds from, because you don't know if you're going to get which of the hybrid parents when you're growing your tomato seed or your pepper seed or whatever seed you're growing. So it's always good, if you're going to be harvesting seeds, to do it from an heirloom seed. I personally just like to buy my seeds. It's a lot easier, but you can certainly save a ton of money and harvest your own seeds. So a couple of places that I like to buy my seeds from are Gurney. These are from Park Seeds. This year I'm trying a variety. I got this free at my Master Gardener class. It's called Wilhite. So I'm going to try them. I absolutely love Baker Creek seeds. They're all heirloom. And then also Johnny seed. So those are the tomatoes. Here are the peppers, and it's the same. Baker Creek, Gurney, Johnny, and Park. I do have one seed packet of hatch chili peppers that I picked up when we were on vacation in New Mexico. So I'm gonna see if I can get those to germinate this year and get some hatch chili peppers. That would be great. So there you have it. That's my seed collection. And then I'll see you in a minute when I'm ready to start mixing my soil. Okay, so we're going ahead and preparing the soil. So when you're doing the soil, it's really important to have something that is for seed starting. So this particular soil has perlite and vermiculite in it, which really helps keep the soil super light and fluffy so that oxygen and water can get to the soil really well. I am horrid at overwatering. That is my biggest problem. So this is what our local greenhouse, Bobo's Nursery, this is what they use for all of their seed starting. So I am actually gonna add some extra perlite in just because of my overwatering issues and see if that helps with my seed starting this year. So we've got this bucket that is filled probably at least 3/4 full. And now we're just gonna add some extra perlite in and mix that really well. This will help keep the soil well oxygenated and light and fluffy and not too much of a problem for if you get too much water. So now I'm gonna go ahead and water my soil. Everything I've learned, it says to put your seed in a soil that is already watered. And the watering amount that you want is when you take your hands and you squeeze your soil, water should not drip out. Like, so you're squeezing it, like if you were to take a sponge in the kitchen sink and you wring it out really, really well. So your sponge is still wet and moist, but it's not dripping with water anymore. So that's our goal for this soil, is to make it so that it's wet and damp, but it is not dripping wet. If it's dripping wet, your seeds will mold and it will be way too much water. So it looks here like we don't have nearly enough water. We need to add more. I'll be back in a second. All right, so we've added enough water so you can see how it's now clumping a bit. Can you hold it up? And you can hold it up and form a ball. Do you see how it clumps together and forms a ball? But there's no water dripping out of it. So this should be a really good amount of moisture for starting my seeds. Now the key is to not let it dry out. You want to keep it about this moistness at all times while the seeds are germinating. And it might take a week to 2 weeks, it says on the packages, to germinate. So you need to watch that closely. If you get it too wet, your seedlings will mold and they won't be any good. And you could also have a dampen off process happens where they just die right at the base of the stem. So this is a crucial part in seed starting, is not to overwater, but not to underwater. So it doesn't want to be too dry or too wet. So the next thing is we're going to start filling up these little trays. And what we did, remember, is wash the trays, sprayed them with alcohol, let them sit for 15 minutes, rinse the tray again. You have to rinse that alcohol off. And then my husband also drilled holes in it. I have no idea why seed starting trays would come without drainage holes in it, but he went ahead and drilled 4 holes so that we can have proper drainage. And these are all gonna sit in a larger black tray so that I can do bottom watering. So I'll show you that in a minute. But what we're gonna do is put some dirt in here. So we don't want it to be completely filled up because I'm gonna put my seeds on. Take a little out, hun. I'm gonna be putting my seeds on and I'm gonna be adding another 1/4 inch. I'm gonna be adding another 1/4 inch of dirt on top after I get my seeds in it, okay? So I'm just gonna fill all my trays to look like that. add my seeds, and then I'm gonna be covering it with some more dirt in a little bit. And we're making a big old mess on the porch, but this is why we're doing it on the porch. Last year I did my seed starting in the house, and that was a big old mess. So I'm gonna try to keep the mess outside this time. Okay, I'm back. So next I'm ready to start putting the seeds in the trays. So if you notice, I am not starting my seeds quite the way many other people do. I'm starting them in a solid tray. So a lot of people get those like little cells that are 2 inch by 2 inch or whatever the size they are, and they'll put a couple of seeds in each cell. I'm just starting it in a whole tray. So each variety gets a whole one of these trays. And I called Park Seed Company because I wanted to know the exact reasoning behind that, because I've heard this is the way you should do it the best. And they told me that the seeds need to have a symbiotic relationship with each other, that the seed and the soil, that they all need to be kind of close together when they're first germinating to have this good symbiotic relationship going on with the water, the air, the soil, the nutrients in the soil, etc. Yes, the seed does contain all the nutrients that that plant needs to sprout. It contains everything. But once it starts to sprout, it's going to need some of the other goodness from the other seeds that are sprouting in the soil and the air and all of the nutrients in the soil. So what I'm doing to help it with its symbiotic relationship is I'm just going to put a light sprinkling of seeds all over the top of this soil. Then the peppers, I'm covering it with about 1/8 of an inch of a top coat of soil, just patting gently. I'm not pushing hard because then they'll get buried under there and they won't be able to get to the light that they need in order to sprout. The other thing I asked, and so of course, when you start this way, after you get the first cotyledon leaves and the true leaves, you don't have to wait till the true leaves are on. You can actually separate and put into the 4-inch packs when they're just have their cotyledon seeds. But once they start getting cotyledon leaves, sorry, not seeds. Once they start getting their leaves, you need to separate them out because then they'll be fighting for nutrients. But if you just started them out in a 4-inch pot, which I tried one year, I really did try that. I was like, why do we have to keep separating these? Let's just start in a big pot, save a lot of time. That's just silly. What they told me at Park Seed is if you put your seed in a 4-inch pot to begin with, that little tiny seed is going to spread and spread and spread its root system out to try to fill up that 4-inch pot, and it's going to just wear out of energy and it's going to die. So you really want to always start small and then transplant to bigger. So you always just keep moving it up bigger and bigger as your plant grows. So that's the reason behind what we're going to try this year. And in a couple of weeks, when they do start sprouting, I will show you how I separate them out and put them into the bigger cell pots. So let me show you, for an example, just taking some of my little seeds. This one is Sweet Pepper Candy Cane Chocolate Cherry Hybrid, and it is from Gurney, and it looks really amazing. Pepper, the chocolate peppers get like a purplish color and they look really fun. So you just have to let them ripen till they get to that stage. So there's not many seeds in here at all. If you can look, that's it. It's not very many. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start all of these seeds. Remember, I'm not necessarily needing all of these pepper plants myself, but I'll be sharing some with my daughter, and then I'll also be donating some to the Master Gardener sale. So this is it. It wasn't very many in this whole packet. There you go. Just kind of spread them out. I didn't worry that they were perfectly evenly spaced. And then whatever doesn't germinate, I'm not wasting my valuable space on my table with seeds that aren't even going to germinate. So, there's always a percent. Pretty much There's not really any seeds that are 100% guaranteed to germinate. So, all right, let me get this next packet open. Wow, Park Seeds does a really cool job with their seed packets. If you notice, it's a foil lined packet, where the other seed packets are either paper or like the wax lined, but these actually have foil lined packets. Now this one, this is all that came in it, and this is the Pepper Hybrid, and this is the Parks Whopper 2 seed. So again, I'm just like sprinkling a little bit on, trying to spread it out so they can grow, not be too smushed together. And that's it. Now I'm gonna show you getting a scoop of that nice moist soil, and I only want it to be 1/8 inch thick. So just a light, sprinkling of soil on these two. And then what I'm gonna do is lightly press it down, not hard, because I want that seed to have contact with the soil, but I don't want it to be so smushed in there that it cannot reach to the light of day. Okay, after I get these all planted, I show you what I'm gonna do next. Thanks. Okay, so here are my seeds all set up in their trays and ready to go. So I wanna show you a couple of things. First, obviously you can see I put Press and Seal all over them. I would highly recommend Press and Seal and not regular saran wrap. And even the lids that came with these little white trays, they kept popping up and they were not my favorite. So the Master Gardener class recommended Press and Seal. It works really well and they've all had great success with it. It sticks really well to the sides of your trays so that the humidity can really build up in there. You want the humidity for starting seeds to be at 50 to 70%. That's your humidity goal when you're starting seeds. You can also leave a plant humidifier or just a regular humidifier sitting around, but I think with putting the Press and Seal over the top, you're gonna have good humidity build up in there. Also can see that I did put a towel down first, just a big beach towel down first, just in case there was any cracks in those black bins when I'm watering. I didn't want it to like go on the floor, I wanted it to sit there. But if that does get wet, it'll help with the humidity also. And then underneath each seed tray, I actually have a heating mat. So this is what the heating mats look like. Up there. I bought those just probably off of Amazon, I'm sure. But the heating mats will help the soil to warm up nice to the correct temperature that it needs to warm up for the seeds to germinate, and it will help your seeds to germinate a little bit faster. So I am right at the proper seed starting time. For tomatoes, you want to start them 6 to 8 weeks before your last chance of frost date. And for peppers, you want to start them 8 to 12 weeks before your last chance of frost. So I'm about 8 weeks out right now. So there is, it's a really good time for me. My last date where there's still a chance of frost, risk of frost, is through March 19th for my zone, and absolutely will not have a frost after April 10th in my zone. So that March 19th to April 10th is kind of a gray area that doesn't really specify if you're gonna have a chance of frost or not. I think you're taking a little bit of a risk, but because our plant sale is in the middle of March, and I really want these plants to be nice and tall and growing well, for that, I decided to go ahead and start them now. So that is it. I will come back and show you an update on my plants and how they're doing in a couple of weeks once they start germinating. I do have my watering can set out. And as each little tray starts sprouting, then I'll have to add press and seal to just the individual trays that don't sprout. So right now, I kind of took the lazy way and just put it over the entire large tray, but each variety is going to sprout at a different time. So once they start sprouting, I'm going to take that press and seal off. And even if just one sprouts, you take the press and seal off the tray that is starting to sprout and let it get some better air. Otherwise, you've got that risk of mold and fungus growing if you don't do that. The other thing that I'm starting is I did buy some potatoes, and they need to grow some eyes and start sprouting as well before I can put them in the ground. So I got the potatoes. I didn't buy a ton. I just got one small bag full of potatoes, and they will go in the ground as soon as they start growing eyes, and I can chop them up and divide them up. When that happens, I'll show you. And I'm also going to start my lettuce soon. The lettuce will do fine in this cooler weather. Once it freezes, it won't do well. And once it gets super hot, it won't do well. So probably this week, maybe towards the end of the week, I'll have some time that I'll start my lettuce outside. So that's an update from Zone 8B in Texas. Hope you get yours started as well soon, and happy gardening, everyone. Bye. One more quick note I wanted to add. Notice I do not have any lights on my seedlings that I'm starting. When you are starting seedlings, they are buried under the ground and you do not need any light source on them at all. But once they start sprouting, I'll be adding lights, and I'll show you how I do that in my next video. So press that subscribe button so you don't miss out on how to set up your lights properly for growing the best veggie plants you can this year.